And there's your first question. We're going to be recording it. So at some point, we'll figure out where we're going to post this, whether it's on Sway University or our website or something like that. But we'll get everything um, posted, let you guys know where it is. So this is going to be great. Yes. So everyone, as I said earlier, is muted. I am going to put in the chat a link to the slides if you guys want to follow along. And most of the stuff, we'll talk about it. It's all on Sway University too, but we're hoping that this can be pretty interactive and uh, all that jazz. Awesome. Yeah, you know what? That's fun. If everyone wants to put like hi from whatever state you're in, love that, Dave. That's great. I'm in New York. I'm Kim, for most of you that know.
And I'm Britt. I'm in Connecticut, East
Nice.
Coast.
There you go. Oh, hey, another East Coaster. Go Maine. Love it. Massachusetts, Springfield College grad right here. Shout out to anyone. Yeah, love it. Oh, this is so fun. This is why it's going to be a little more interactive, hopefully, than our CEUs, and we'll have a good time. Callie, appreciate you, West Coast.
Oh, Toronto too.
Hey,
International.
that's it. This is great. I'm losing track of time now. This is good. I should almost do this on the CEUs. That way, it, like, actually lets people get in the groove here. Yo, Maine is showing up today. There we go. Awesome. All right. Well, good. It looks like the waiting room is slowing down a bit, so I'm gonna get things moving. As I said, you guys are all muted when you came in here, but welcome to our first customer only Sway webinar. This is one geared towards your rookie season with Sway. So if you've never baseline tested before with Sway, we're going to break everything down for you, all the tips and tricks that Britt and I have learned along the way, and also heard from thousands of other customers. So we'll really break everything from a baselining session down, and I'll go over kind of all the objectives. So, a few housekeeping things. I already said your audio is automatically muted, and definitely submit all your questions in the Q&A. You could put stuff in the chat too. I'll keep tabs on both. But our new thing with the Q&A, you're able to like upvote a question. So you'll be able to see everyone else's questions. And if there's something like a question that you have the same one, or it's really interesting, you want to know the answer, there will be a way to upvote it, and that way I can make sure that I bring that one up. And I want to try to answer things in real time. So, um, Britt's going to be running the show, but I might interject, and have a pose the question to her as we're going through things. So we do want this to be as interactive as possible. Um, and yeah, we'll go from there. This webinar is recorded, and we will, hopefully post it at a later date. We'll let you know when. If you want the recording like sooner rather than later, feel free to email support at Sway Medical after the fact, but it will get posted most likely on Sway University. So um, no rush there. And everyone, if you can see where your Q&A button is, um, we'll talk through there. And the CEU credits, so there is a way to submit CEU credits through the BOC for the time that you're spending with us today. So there will still be a survey at the end of this if you want to claim CEU credits. So let that survey pop up, answer the questions. If you don't have time, we'll send you a reminder this afternoon. And then once you complete the survey, you're going to be emailed, your certificate. And then, Britt, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you can submit these as Category D CEUs through the BOC.
Correct. Yep.
Yes. So, hey, might as well. You're spending time with us. We appreciate almost 80 of you guys with us today. So you might as well get the credit for it.
And the hope is that you're going to learn something.
Yeah, heck yeah. So here's our objectives. We'll do kind of a quick Sway overview, make sure you guys know the lay of the land between the app and the portal, and then just looking about where to start, how to run your baseline session effectively and efficiently, and then definitely dive into some of the results interpretation. If you've never baselined before, we're not going to go super deep into it. That can be a little overwhelming on your first exposure, but we'll definitely hit as many questions. We have some case examples, and we got a fun lineup for you guys. So, Britt, take it away.
All right. I'm gonna take over the share here. You see that?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So just a little intro. My name's Britt. I am the athletic trainer one of the athletic trainers with Sway. We got Casey too. And I'm the concussion success specialist. So you've probably already seen tons of emails from me, especially when you first, got your login to Sway. Myself, Kim, our colleague Sarah, and really anybody at the Sway team here to help you. So you'll be getting pumped with tons of resources from us. The goal of today is really just, we have some new users. We have some users that have been on Sway for the last couple months, and we might have some vet Sway users that just want, a little refresher. So any of you, if you have questions, do not hesitate to throw it in the Q&A. We love to hear from all of you. So the first thing we always like to ask, super important, one, have you logged into your Sway system, whether hopefully both through the Sway app and the web portal? If for some reason you have not gotten a welcome to Sway email with your login credentials, absolutely reach out to support@swaymedical.com. Let's correct that. So we'll get you into the system. Sometimes those emails go to spam or whatever. So we'll get that corrected to you. The second thing is, have you completed a demo test yourself or provided a demo test to any family members? We obviously, as healthcare providers, learn when we are kind of thrown into the fire. So here's a demo code. This is if you've watched any of our Sway University courses, it's the code that's thrown up there often. Write it down. This is going to allow you to take a Sports Plus assessment, which is, as we'll get into, our gold standard, generally the protocol you'll use on baseline testing. Be the athlete yourself. Learn how they're going to walk through the app with their demographics, walk through the instructions that they're provided through the app so that you know how to, answer those questions in time when you do start baseline testing. All right. So what is Sway, right? So we understand here at Sway that the concussion world is very dynamic, right? The landscape's constantly changing, the research, and we want to make sure that we align ourselves with the research. With that said, generally, right, unless you're in the boarding school setting, which you get some weird head injuries in that setting, those head injuries are not happening in a computer lab. You're out on the field, you're on the basketball court, wherever. So you need to be able to, not only review previous injuries, be able to provide objective testings, collect those objective measures in real time anywhere you are. So that's what Sway is all about. When we talk about what Sway is, we're the first FDA cleared software for concussion management. So or from a mobile standpoint, okay? Mm-hmm. So when we say, oh, have you logged into Sway? We're talking about both the Sway Medical app and the web portal. Now, just from who has access to what, you as the Sway users are going to have access to both. But your athletes, when you go and start providing tests for them, they won't have access to that web portal. They're going to be only able to jump into their specific tests through the Sway Medical app. All right. So let's talk about a couple of definitions. I think this is important when we're first starting out. A Sway profile are your athletes or your patients. They're the individuals that you are testing in your Sway system. So when you go and create a code, which we'll talk about, this is how the athletes actually create their profiles in their system. All right. Every athlete will have their own profile. Those profiles are then funneled into specific groups. Okay. So, every school, every setting is going to be a little bit different on how that works. Some people will set this up by sport. Some might set it up by class year. It's really up to you on how you want to organize those groups. Athletes and profiles can live in multiple groups. We then have codes. So we have group codes and profile codes. We'll kind of talk on how we create these codes later, but just note that the codes are how the profiles, how the athletes get into their system. They do not have a login. Okay. And then lastly, we have events. So events for us in Sway are your injuries. So you have the ability to create events and categorize injuries within each profile to then keep track of those injuries throughout the recovery, be able to create reports to track injury rates over a certain period of time, and be able to flag what tests fell within the injury timeline. All right. So looking at the breakdown of what can you do in the Sway app versus what you can do in the Sway portal, this is not a comprehensive list, but just an overview. You can do a lot of the same things in both. So it's really based on preference, right? Us as athletic trainers, we're not necessarily going to be in front of a computer often. So the web portal, you might be on a little bit, or you might be on the app more or less. All right. Key takeaways there. You cannot create your groups in your app. You have to do this ahead of time. And we'll talk through this. You'll have to do this in the web portal. You can't add new users. So anybody that needs access to those results later down the road or create codes can't do that. Also in the app, you have to do that in the web portal. You can't create protocols. Again, we'll talk about this, but you can't do this in the app. And most importantly, you cannot take a Sway medical test in the web portal. You have to have a mobile device with a gyroscope within that device to be able to download the app and take that test. All right. So in terms of the Sports Plus protocol, this is our, like I said, gold standard protocol. This includes our symptoms, the modified BEST test, and then our 4 cognitive tests: inspection time, reaction time, impulse control, and memory. It also includes additional surveys that you may use at baseline. You also might use kind of from a post-injury standpoint, tracking recovery. One thing I want to point out is our 2 mental health surveys are not automatically added to your system. So if you're kind of walking through this with us and you note that you don't have access to the PHQ-9 and the GAD-7 and you want it, again, reach out to support at swaymedical.com. We'll be able to send resources over and get those added. Okay. Another thing, just as an overview from our Sway platform, we have the ability to integrate with several EMRs. You guys are already doing enough on the sidelines and just especially right now, to have to manually, which you can manually create a clinical report, which is a PDF of any test that you complete on Sway and kind of manually upload to your EMR. But we have the ability to actually connect your EMR, if they're listed above, and your Sway system, so that automatically gets uploaded. So if you have Sportswear, Healthy Roster, Privet, Pyramid, ATS, and hopefully soon Teamworks, we'll be able to.
We see you, Andrew. It's coming soon.
Yeah, we'll be able to get all the proper paperwork to get that started, especially before your baseline. So all those tests that you're going to be completing automatically updates. All right, how are we doing with questions here, Kim?
Good. We got other EMR, questions, final forms. We've chatted with them. I don't have a good timeline for you. Rank 1. We've chatted with them. It has not worked out very well at the moment. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, feel free everyone to put your EMRs on the list, or at least in the chat, and I'll write them down. I got a whole list of EMRs that we're keeping track of, but the one we can say is Teamworks is very close. So I'm not giving anyone a timeline, but we're close.
Perfect.
But yeah, feel free put any smaller ones in there. We'll go from there.
Cool. All right. So now that we kind of established that platform, the platform that is Sway, where do you start? All right. You're first logging into your system. What do you do? And we kind of have two key takeaways that we want you to make sure you do before you start any baseline testing. One, we want to make sure everybody has access that needs to. Okay. So this is a quick screenshot of a breakdown of all the access types we have within Sway. All right. We have an enterprise system admin, a system admin, so that's one individual Sway system, and then a Sway user. We're not going to focus on the enterprise system admin for today because that's kind of a more, there's additional layers to that one. But the system admin for any individual Sway system essentially has the run of the mill. Or the run of the roost, I should say. They're able to have access to all profiles, all groups, create groups, add other staff members that need access, and be able to merge profiles, which we'll kind of talk about, from an administrative standpoint. Whereas a user is really limited on what they have access to based on what the system admin and the primary admin, who's kind of our go-to contact for that account, who they're providing access to. So let's say users, especially in the collegiate setting, you might only be working with certain teams. They might put you as a user and only provide you access to the basketball team and the swim team, and so forth. So if you're noticing that you're having some limited access to certain groups, it might be because your access type is a user. And so just reach out to another system admin. You can reach out to support, and we can kind of walk through this and make sure everybody has access to who they need to. You can have unlimited users, and when I say users, I mean system admins and users in your account. So provide access to whoever needs it. The second thing you'll need to do is add your groups, right? Every profile, so every one of your athletes, when they're creating their profiles and completing their baselines or post-injury tests, if it's the first time they're testing, they're going to funnel into a group. So we need those groups set up before that they start testing. All right. So a couple things to think about when you were talking about group setup. How will you be baseline testing? Are you going to be doing it by team? Are you going to be having, just have them kind of roll in over time and you're not necessarily taking one specific team? Are there specific users that need limited access? That's another piece of it. If you're adding any coaches that are going to be helping baseline test, makes sense to only provide them access to their specific teams, right? So then that would push your hand to organize over sports. One thing I think is really important is that you do not need to make new groups each year. Certainly, if you add a new sport, the next year, you might have to create a new group, but you don't have to put a school year and say, okay, these are the baseline tests and the groups for this roster year. You're going to have the ability to bulk move, archive athletes that you no longer need to have access to, and you can keep the same groups over time. And this is something that we're actually running another webinar next week, July 30th, to kind of talk about what do you do those next years when you baseline test again, okay? But I think that's important. Here's just a couple examples of how people, organize their groups. I worked in the secondary school setting at a boarding school. I tested every student, not just athletes. So it was easier for me to actually create each group by class year versus, every sport. Totally up to you.
Yeah. And on the opposite, I always like doing it by teams because it was just a smaller number of athletes versus the entire class. And really, I would say our customers are kind of all over the place. And I think it's best to decide, like, organize your groups based on how your preseason's looking. Are you baselining by teams, or are you getting the freshmen, or make it easiest for you, essentially.
Yep. And then here's the example regarding archiving profiles. So especially if any of you had started testing this year, got access early, you may need to transition some of those seniors out. We have an inactive group within your Sway system where you move those athletes out. All right. So let's go ahead. We're going to jump into the Sway portal here. Can you still see my screen, Kim? That I switched the
Mhm.
tab? Okay. So this is the web portal here. So I'm just jumping on the dashboard here. You're going to be able to see a lot of information right from here, right? You're going to be able to see those open events. So those are the injuries that you need to just keep a little closer track of to be able to jump right into their profiles. Any recent activity. So as those tests are kind of pumping through, you'll be able to view the most recent test. And then any active codes. So especially from a baseline standpoint, you're going to see a lot of active codes, if you're doing it by sport, by class year, probably coming up pretty soon. Okay. Over here on the left-hand side, you got your main menu. So this is just how you can view different information on the portal. One specific thing that you're not going to see in the Sway app is this protocols tab. Oh, of course, get logged out here. So the protocols tab is, all of those different types of tests, arrangements of modules that you can have. So, from a Sports Plus standpoint, you're able to see this is already a standard protocol that we have where it's listed those 5 modules. We also have each one of these modules as a protocol themselves. You have your surveys, but you actually have the ability to create your own protocol, name it, add a description if you want symptoms tracking included, and you're able to add, any one of those modules that you may want. Once you save it down, you have access to it both in the Sway portal and the app to create codes. You got the codes page, which again, you're going to be able to see any active or expired codes. So just note that our codes, they have 2 different statuses. They can be active, meaning you can provide this 5-character code here to any athletes and they can use it. Or if they've expired, they'll show up here, but they're not shown. The expired ones are not shown in the app. All right. And you can see, they're easily labeled a group, meaning you're giving this out to the masses and they're funneling into that specific group, or a profile code that is specifically tied to that profile, and all the tests funnel under that profile. All right. You'll see the groups here arranged, based on how you need. Super easy to add these groups. You just go in here, name it, and save it down. Really easy. And they'll start listing under here. And then for users, when we want to add users, you'll just toggle it here. Again, if you want to add a user, you'll choose their access type initially, and then be able to add all the asterisk fields and add them to at least one group. If this is a system admin, let's say you add them to volleyball, once you save it down, it's going to give them access to every single group within that system. So you don't have to go and toggle. But for a user, if you only want them to have specific groups, you have to manually toggle that and update it as their access might need to be updated. Okay.
Quick question on, I'm assuming this relates to codes. When you create a code, you can set an expiration date. So like if you're doing a group code, you're trying to baseline all your athletes, push that date out to like a month or so. That way you don't have to create more codes. But sometimes an individual code, or really any code, there's going to be a date that it expires on. You can always edit that expiration date within the time frame. If you miss it, then just create a new code. Once you guys get moving, it's not too hard to create new codes, whether it's a group or a profile, but that's what an expired
Yep.
code means.
Yeah. And really, when you're like I'm jumping into a specific group here, girls volleyball. You're also able to see any code that's been assigned to this group, expired or active at the time. Some people think that once that expires, that's why they have to create a new group because they have to create a new code. But really, you can have many codes for the same group. It's always going to just funnel those profiles right into that group, regardless of whether this is a new 5 characters or not. Any other
Yeah.
questions coming in about the portal here?
Yeah, a little bit on the expired codes, like you set the expiration for the codes, you choose when you want it to expire. So kind of no thing on that. So the expired code is the way to get the athlete on board. Sorry, Mark, I don't know if I fully understand that question. The expired code is really just like a code that was used at one point and then now you can't use it anymore. And codes are just a way to administer a test. So say I made a profile code for my athlete that got hurt and I only set it for one day. Then tomorrow, oh darn, I should have set it for longer. I just create a new code, administer another test. You can administer as many tests as you want, create as many codes as you want. The whole reason of having a code duration for a longer time is so that you don't have to make a new code every single time if you don't want to. So I'm hoping that kind of answered that piece. Oh,
And you
and
can
this
always,
good.
I was going to say just along that lines, as long as the code is active, you can go in both in the portal and in the app and edit it and change the end date. So let's say you created the end date and you're like, shoot, I actually need this a little bit longer. You can push it out. Let's say you don't want it listed, you don't no longer need that code, you can also delete it. And it's not going to delete any results. It's just going to delete the access to be able to provide any new tests for that code. So,
Yeah. And then Paul has a good question. Can you explain what you are using for the visiting athlete or the traveling
mm,
athlete code for? So that's a good kind of scenario.
yeah. So this is definitely based on your setting. We have a lot of athletic trainers that might have, right, when they're covering games, the visiting team might have that school also might be Sway users. Um, so you can go ahead, like this one specifically, athletes traveling. So I can give out this code to, let's say my athletes are going over to Kim's school. I can provide this code to Kim if one of my athletes gets injured and she's evaluating them over there. And then this is going to funnel their profile into this group and just notifies me to say, hey, I need to go back and make sure I review this before that athlete comes back to home. So I can help, you know, let everybody else know at school, and basically start my concussion protocol. Whereas it could be the opposite, right? You have athletes that come in and I have for only away athletes. So I'm using that one code for every athlete that I am evaluating from an away team to be able to just kind of keep everything organized that way. We also have profile sharing now. So we don't necessarily you don't have to use it this way so much where you can actually share profiles across multiple Sway orgs. So you have access to any previous testing that has happened and kind of make decisions on the sideline as you need. So you can share or import. You just need the profile ID, which is specific to the athlete, first name, last name, and date of birth to be able to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, great questions. Someone asked for a demo code for the on-field assessment. So I'll make a quick demo code for that and I'll pop it in the chat. So you guys can write that down if you want to feel what the on-field assessment is. We had it up on a slide earlier. It's just the on-field assessment from the SCAT-6. So it's your red flags, Glasgow Coma Scale, C-spine assessment, all of those things. And it's just a bunch of clicks. It's you still asking the athlete all those questions. You're just inputting the answers into Sway. So we call it the CYA survey, basically, but it's really just a survey that you would be inputting those answers. Uh,
Yeah,
and someone had a
it's the
great
first
suggestion.
page.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
First
guys.
page of the SCAT-6.
Yeah. Someone had a great suggestion. I already wrote it down. Pamela, thank you for this. Is there a way to mass close old events or do you have to do it individually? So Britt, correct me if I'm wrong. Right now it is individual. You click on those
Correct.
events and close it. A little bit cumbersome, but great idea for the future.
Yep. So you would have to click in. We're kind of going off the script here, but we'll answer
Yeah.
those questions in the time. So you would have to go into each profile, edit event, and you can do this both in the portal and the app, and just add that end date and time and save it, and that would close it each event.
But all great questions. And if there is like a legit question, try to put them in the Q&A because I want to be able to keep track of them. And if people want to like uptick it or whatever that word was. Um,
All
yeah,
right.
let's dive in. This is
Let's
the real nuts and bolts here.
Yeah, so we'll go into logistics of how you're going to set up that baseline session. Now that we got users and groups set up, right? Couple things to think about. When we talk about the baseline session, we generally recommend having 45 minutes delegated to that full session. So that means, about 10 minutes of those athletes funneling in. You provide some quick instructions to make sure the app's downloaded, the phone's on do not disturb, not airplane mode, do not disturb. And then getting them into adding their demographics to create their profile. About 20 minutes to actually complete their baseline assessment. So if you're doing a baseline assessment, about 20 minutes of that Sports Plus protocol, and then a 15-minute period of checking out. So that's you reviewing results, potentially needing to exclude, because you can edit trials from a test or provide retests depending on what happened during that session, and just allow that athlete to check out and move on. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit different for every person, every setting, but that's the general rule of thumb. Cool.
45 minutes is the time I like to tell coaches, like, give me
Yeah.
this. They can certainly get done faster than that. But if you want to give yourself a little more cushion, that's what we recommend.
Yep. And then thinking about the actual session of them of itself, right? Who are you going to be testing? How many people are you going to be testing? Certainly, as you're first starting off, highly recommend smaller groups. That way, you can kind of navigate those questions that might come up a little easier, especially that review test results at the end, just to get a rhythm of how to look at those results, quickly make edits or provide profile codes to retest. Definitely much easier starting out with a smaller group. And then really the limitations from there is how many mobile devices you have, right? If it's one, you have one athlete with one mobile device across a whole team, you can really open that up. You need to make sure you have a solid 45 minutes for each baseline session. And then depending on the size of the group, you need a location that's, got a nice, stable, flat surface, relatively quiet for that full 45 minutes, has some access to an internet connection, whether that's Wi-Fi or cellular connection, and some space to spread those athletes out. And you'll notice if you haven't either taken the test yet yourself or been a part of a baseline session, the app does provide some noise notifications. So you want to make sure those athletes are not on top of each other, one from a distraction piece of it, but just to help with the noise that's provided during those notifications. So who should you baseline? So, if this is your first year with Sway, that's kind of easy to answer, right? You're trying to get all these athletes funneling and have a baseline started. But, over the years, as you start using Sway more and more, there's a lot of philosophies to look at how often you should baseline test your athlete. Definitely some limiting factors could be time and resources, and we understand that. This is a quick snapshot of a resource we have on Sway University, which shows, from mining the data, those changes over time. So with age, how our cognitive tests change over time, and how specifically the balance test changes over time, right? And with this test, our Sports Plus protocol, including the functional balance piece of it, as along with the cognitive, those freshmen, when they first come in, they have no idea how to control their body. So think about how much that will probably change as they develop and improve those motor skills, how that's going to change. We highly recommend if you're in a secondary school setting, if you have the ability to test every year for those athletes, definitely plateaus as you get into the collegiate age. But just remember that each baseline is only one timestamp. The more timestamps you can have, the better you'll be able to compare those results post injury. So, all right. Step two. Yep.
I'm going to sneak in for a quick question when you mentioned the noise notification. So, once you take the demo test yourself, this is another reason to take it. You'll experience what the sounds of the sway test are like. In my experience, I've tested kids in a big field house, open gym, but also in a narrow hallway, and I've done it in a racquetball court. So, depending on where you're testing, that's really should be your kind of gauge on if you want the phone sound on or off. And we'll get into all the phone specifications of it, but there's a little ding during the balance test and during our reaction time test that you'll hear. And if you're in a enclosed space, there's going to be a bunch of dinging going around, so it can be a little bit distracting. But it really depends where you're testing the kids.
Perfect. All right. So we'll fly through this part because we kind of already talked about the codes. But it's important to remember you can do this in both the app and the web portal. We have those two types, right? A profile code is specifically tied to that profile, whereas a group code is going to be given out during your baseline sessions. Everybody's going to use the same code. It's at the first portion is the demographics. So that's how their profile is created. If this is a returning athlete using returning athlete using a group code, they're still going to be asked to put in their demographics. Just make sure they know to put in the same first name, last name, and date of birth. Hopefully they're using their full names, no nicknames, and those profiles will automatically merge. You'll have the ability to choose the test type. So we have two different test types, assessment and screening. Your screening is just going to be one trial of each section of the test. It's super fast. It's really meant more so for like a post-injury, whether you're using it on the sideline use or, throughout the recovery process to get a quick, pull of what's going on, a quick gauge of how that athlete's doing. Whereas the assessment is absolutely what we recommend on a baseline standpoint. This is going to be a practice test of each section and then 2 to 3 trials. And the system actually can regulate, or not regulate, but decide on whether the first trial and the second trial are consistent. So how consistent are those two trials? If they aren't, it's going to actually throw a third trial on there. So this is important to remember when those athletes are going to ask, how long is this going to take, right? Just note that everybody's going to finish at a different time because some athletes are going to be more consistent than others. So just always stress to them, hey, make sure that you are focused on your test and doing the best you can. And generally, that's going to help with that consistency piece. You're going to have, I think I have a visual of kind of how that looks, from a trial standpoint, right? So they went through balance and inspection time, a practice test, and then only 2 trials because they were nice and consistent. And then reaction time, impulse control shows that third trial because there was less consistency for that.
And this is a great point I like to make. We just posted a video on Sway University of the Sway spiel, and it's me just like giving the instructions of like how I, you know, how I provide the instructions to the athletes. But this is something where I'll say to them, hey, if you guys can, lock in and focus, you're going to get this over and done with. But if you're fooling around, it's going to make you do 3 trials of every single module because some kids are going to get done quicker. The real testing could be 15 minutes, could be 20 minutes, could be longer if they're really messing around. They have to redo modules. So this is something, if you understand this, it's also going to help in your explanation to the kids.
Exactly. So a couple tips, we've kind of gone through some of them, right? There's the expiration date for each of these codes. Make sure you pay attention to when those are. You can keep them on as long as you want. But just note that the longer you keep it open, it's just listed and kind of takes up space. You can edit those expiration dates and notifications, right? If you click that you want to add a notification to yourself every time that code is used, you can do this via email, notification in the app, or through a text. You can add that for a provider too, if you want to. So you have the ability to edit that at any point as long as that code's active. And if it expires, it's okay. Just create a new one. Totally easy. All right. All right, I'm going to jump to the app here so we can kind of walk through real quick how to add those codes. Kim, any questions as I'm doing that?
Oh, do I have a script for my instructions? That's a great question. I mean, I could download the transcript of the spiel video, but you're definitely going to get some Kimisms in there. And we do have on the Swing University resource page just a step-by-step written instructions. So that's more like bullet points. I could put the link to that in there. Everything's on our Sway resource page, and we'll hit some of those other resources there too. But great question.
Yep. So when you're in your app, you're going to have a lot of same information as the dashboard, right? You can search via name for the profile. You're able to see any open events, any recent activity, and then any active codes, both group and profile codes. Now, if I want to create a code, I'd go down to the bottom, which is kind of like your main menu, click codes, go to actions in the top right-hand corner. And then I have the ability to make a group code or a profile code right from this screen. And then this is going to just open up into your code setup page. So you'll choose your group, your expiration date, what protocol you'll use, right? So I think it actually arbitrarily picks Sports Plus, but you can always edit that. What test type you would want, so the length of the test. Make sure you have the checkbox there that this is a baseline test, so our system knows. And then the last couple options are to show results after test. So this is if the athlete is using their device to test, those results are going to pop up right on their screen. So I don't necessarily recommend that for baseline. So that's going to be a lot of confused athletes in front of you. But definitely from a post-injury standpoint, when you don't have your device on you, super easy to grab that athlete's phone to take a look at those results. And then you're able to add those notifications and you save it down. And once we do save it down, you're going to be able to see that 5-character code, which when they log in or when they jump into the Sway app for the first time, you'll see the generic login credentials. But right above that, there's an enter code button. They can enter that 5-character code. Or if you're on this specific code page, you go to actions in the top right-hand corner, share code, and now you have a QR code that you can take a screenshot, print it off, have it posted up at the field or gym that you're going to be testing. If the athlete has already downloaded the app, they can take a screenshot open up their camera, use the QR code, and it jumps them directly into their test. If they haven't downloaded the app, it will take them to the App Store first to download. Okay. Super easy on that front. I'll jump back in here. Any other questions, Kim, that came in?
No, well, we do have one that we'll definitely get to when we look over the baseline results. And when you see inconsistent results, how do we have them repeat that section, kind of creating that profile code? But that's definitely a scenario that we'll walk through once we look at the results.
Perfect. So a couple just quick snapshots of some of the resources we have. This baseline cheat sheet, really great one. Highly recommend having it printed off and have it in front of you when you're first running your baseline sessions. It walks you through everything that we just talked about. Also, the phone settings that you want your athletes to have their phones on to, be able to take a test successfully, and then walks through those instructions that you're going to provide those athletes And this number 4 bullet, some of the key takeaways we feel will help just make sure those athletes are staying focused and moving through their test, with ease. So these are all on the resources tab, except for this normative data sheet. If you're looking to see our normative data broken down a little bit more than what it is in the app, as well as our reliable change index, reach out to support and we can send that over to you. So quick overview, that athlete experience, right? You're going to see this as well when you're walking through this, taking the demo code. They're going to enter the code. They're going to create their profile. And then they're going to run through that Sports Plus protocol or whatever protocol you choose. Demographics is going to be, first name, last name, height, weight, gender, sex, those types of things. Our normative data is driven by sex and date of birth. So making sure, definitely the date of birth can be a little funky when they're putting it in. So make sure they confirm they're putting in the right date of birth. They have the ability to take the test in 3 different languages. This isn't a good screenshot, but through the demographic section, there's a little drop-down menu in the top right-hand corner where they can choose one of these 3 options. They'll also have this option when they're in the procedure page. Once they go into the actual test, they can't switch it. So if you do have a athlete that Spanish or French is their first language, feel free to have them take it with that language. Next up, they're going to go through
on the language
yep.
front, you will be able to see like post-injury or just after they've taken the test on the portal, you'll see which language the test was taken in. So in the event of an injury, you can re-administer any post-injury test in that same language, if that's what they did their baseline in. So you'll see a little language icon to indicate which one they took it in.
Yep. And you'll see that here. Here's the screenshot that has that drop down.
Yeah.
The next
and we
step,
always get the question. Sorry, we always get it just came up. Any additional languages? We got a whole list of things. Feel free to put a couple in the chat if there's a language that you really want. I'm sure it's already on our list, but love to see it. So definitely more on the list coming.
Yep, absolutely. So the next set, so once they add their demographics, they jump into this procedure page. There's a big button here that says hardware verification. This is really important to make sure the device that they're testing on is ready to go. It can receive those results properly. I know I drop my phone all the time, right? So we need to make sure the hardware, the specs inside the phone, that gyroscope is working properly. They'll put their phone on a nice flat surface. They'll click that button. It takes like 3 seconds. It will count down. Hopefully you get a nice green check. That means that device is good to go. If they get a red X, just have them kind of situate that phone again. Maybe it's not fully on a flat surface. Run it again. I would generally run this like 2 to 3 times. Again, it could be just, they're not placing it down early enough. If you continue to get a red X, do not use that device. You'll just need to have a backup plan, which you should anyways, on having that athlete use a friend's phone after they finish. Maybe you have an additional iPad or something in the athletic training room they can use, a parent's phone. Last case scenario, you provide them with your device. And the reason for that is you'll be able to review these tests and the results coming in real time. So we want you to be able to do that. But certainly if you have to give up your device to get the test completed, then you got to do what you got to do. All right.
Yeah, good comment in the chat that sometimes like a huge, pop socket or, bulky case might mess up the hardware verification. So you can always instruct them to take that case off. And have you seen iPads or iPhones not verify with the case on? Oh yeah, case. So same question. Take that case off usually works.
Perfect. All right, I want to make sure we can get into the results interpretation here. So I'm just going to kind of jump through this. Our Sports Plus protocol we talked about, right? MBEST, so this is looking at the 5 stances, feet together, tandem stance, and then single leg stance on both sides and tandem both sides. And then it goes into inspection time, reaction time, impulse control, and memory. Both balance and memory are scored out of a 0 to 100 scale. And then the three in the middle are based out of milliseconds, so out of time. So that's going to be really important when you start looking at the test. You're going to notice the score scale to be a little bit different. But I want to make sure we mention them. All right. So what are you looking
Yeah.
at when you're
Right,
oh
maybe for time's sake, let's hop into the app because really the place where you're going to like run your baseline session out of is the phone. You're going to be on the codes page, and we can look at some of the results in the app. All the stuff that we're about to run through is really like a deeper dive, and you'll see that on results interpretation course in Sway University. But I want you guys to leave here like really feeling like, hey, when I run a baseline session, this is exactly what I'm looking at. And this is why Britt said earlier, we don't want you to give up your phone to an athlete. Like, let them just wait for their friend's phone to use, because this is the screen that you're going to see when you're running a baseline session. And as those kids put their demographic information in, their names are going to pop up and all their test results are going to come in real time. Um, and then Hayden, we'll get to your question here. This is that green, yellow, and red consistency markers. Red does not mean bad. And saying green doesn't mean it's a good score. It just means they were very consistent between their trials. So you can be consistent, but in a low percentile. Um, so as you're reviewing baseline results, you definitely want to look at these colors. If I see a couple of red modules, and the scores are all over the place, I might have them redo that module. Now, Hayden's question specifically is if they have to redo more than one module, it is a little bit cumbersome to have them, you have to give them a code for reaction time and a code for memory. On our protocol list, we don't have every single combination of every single module. Now, I have heard some people have gone in and made custom protocols to fit every combination. So if you see a combination of modules that kids have to redo a lot, you can make your own custom protocol and have it set there. But typically there's always, I say usually at least one that they have to redo. And if I'm having them redo their balance module, we just create a profile code for that kid for that particular module. Um, so you don't have to like redo the whole thing, and they don't have to input their demographics again, which is nice.
yeah, exactly. And so this is an example of that code page here. I'll jump into the app to show it. I realize I actually don't have any active codes to be able to show it well, so I'm going to use the Sway University one here.
Yeah, that's a very active code. We got lots of people. And someone asked a question while that's getting pulled up. Are we the evaluators for Sway as athletic trainers, not a physician? So the athletic trainers are definitely the first set of eyes on baseline tests. So you guys are looking at the results to ensure that your baselines are, valid, reliable. Like the whole point of baselining is you want a good measure of that athlete's balance and cognitive abilities. So by looking at these, red and yellow and green dots, if I'm looking at like we can drop down one of these, and if I see that, there's someone with a lot of red. Oh, I was just editing this one yesterday on a demo. But you guys can see this example of this profile that had red on their balance test. Their scores were, an 82, a 53, a 68. They were all over the place. And for a balance score, remember, balance and memory are scored on a 0 to 100 scale, 100 being the best. Those three trials were all over the place. So I would have them redo their balance test. And we could just do a quick demo of that. You go to that profile, hit the actions button, create code. And then I would say to this athlete, like, hey, you really messed up on your balance there. Like, I know you're a better athlete than that, or whatever like your spiel is. And then you find MBES only, which this is an internal org. So there's a whole
Yeah,
bunch
I
of
was going to
things
say,
here.
there it is.
I know. MBES only, you leave that baseline button checked. You leave it as an assessment. That's really important. And then that other thing won't be there. You hit save. And then this is the code that you say, all right, kid, like punch this in, go over there, redo your balance, like concentrate on it. I know you're better than that, or whatever you want to say. Um, and then hopefully you get more data points. You get another 2 or 3 trials to compare to the original 3 trials from balance, and then you'll see where their actual, average balance score is. Um, Sandra, this is a great question. Is the goal to have their baseline completely green? I mean, in a sense, yeah. Like if I'm baselining a huge group of athletes, if I see all green, I'll expand it just to look at the numbers, especially if the athlete is like my starting wide receiver or a kid that's had a concussion in the past. I want to make sure their baselines are really good. But if I see this all green, their percentiles, you scroll over, you could see that their percentiles are pretty good. A little bit low on impulse control, like it says 39th percentile, but everything else is pretty high. If I'm pressed for time, more likely than not, all green, good to go. It's the ones with the red and yellow or the kids that have a history of concussion that I'm going to dive a little deeper into. Uh, so hopefully that answered that question. Oh yeah, Hayden, I totally agree with you. We've talked about this. It'd be nice to repeat a section and like kind of send it in the mist instead of having to create another code. Definitely something we've talked about. And say it's on the vision board, we'll put it that way. Um,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
really, like this code page personally is the page that I live off of during a baseline session. Like the dots, and don't be afraid, the dots are going to start all red. Like after they complete trial 1, it's going to be red. It won't turn to green until they've completed their second trial, because the app has to compare trial 1 and trial 2 to decide if it's going to be green or if it's going to prompt a third trial.
Yep, exactly. So real quick, let me jump into my org here. And then we can take a look at specific. So you'll notice that in the app, when you click the profiles group, it's actually, or profiles tab, it's going to jump you into your profiles. So if we open up a profile here into that specific test balance, you'll be able to see that baseline consistency colored bar, red, yellow, or green, depending on how consistent they are. You'll see the gray bar, which is our normative data. Over to the left is going to be your, 25th down to 10th percentile. The dark gray to the right is going to be 75th to 90th percentile. And then the lighter gray in the middle is your average scores, 25th to 75th. You'll see the average of all the trials that were completed for that module in the black caret there. So for this balance, it's 91 is the average scores for this. And you'll note that the scoring scale at the bottom, so that 50, 60, 70, the lower, slower scores, depending on which module you're looking at, are going to be to the left. Higher, faster scores are going to be to the right. All right. So as you're going through this, and this is kind of opening up those profiles so you can see, okay, what does that red dot actually look like? All right. This is a good example where you're looking at time. It might be just a matter of when you're looking at test 1, test 2, test 3, there might be an outlier in there that you're able to just quickly exclude. Maybe there were questions on that test, the athlete was getting distracted. So if you click actions in the top right hand button, edit test, you're able to just X over that trial, it grays it out, and immediately you can see that that turned into a more consistent score. You can always add it back in if you want to, later down the road. But just from a visual standpoint, that's nice and easy to be able to edit. You can do this in the portal as well. And then we go through.
I'm drawing on the screen as you're doing it.
Oh,
Hopefully
are
it's
you?
not too
Wow, well
distracting.
done.
Yeah.
Well done.
I don't know if it's helpful.
And then, so if we look at these other couple here, we're looking at consistent scores, kind of average scores if we're looking at the percentiles. At this point, I would say, hey, all right, Brent, you're good to go. No need to, retest anything.
Oh, Katie
Now,
had a
if
great question. And Britt, you could probably check me on my answer here. And I,
yep,
I do want to be cognizant of everyone's time. So if you got to go, you got to go. But we'll stick around for an additional 5 minutes just to finish up the last key points and answer questions. But when you're looking at the baseline results, this is something that's come up before of can you filter or sort things differently? And so Katie had put the question in the chat. Can you see, will it pop up in alphabetical order, or who's further along in the testing? And we've made some updates to that, so you'll see those coming soon.
yep,
So short answer is yes, Katie. Like
yes, yeah.
you could sort
If
it
you
any way you need to now.
exactly. And so this is a good example of if an athlete has to retake a section, right? So this is the original baseline. You're able to see on that feet together stance, we have some flagged results for certain portions of our test. If they just fall below what we would expect um, a healthy individual to be able to test. And so for balance at feet together, which is the easiest stance, it's going to be below 90 points. So we have two trials that fall below that. In my opinion, if you see any flagged results, even though test 1 and test 3 are relatively close together, I would automatically exclude those and retest, because that would only lead you with one trial left. Because that feet together stance is so low, even on test 3. All right, so just keeping that in mind. And then if we go through, inspection time looks good, nice and consistent. Reaction time, nice and consistent. Impulse control, it shows a third trial. So it was flagging it as inconsistent the first two through the third one in there, and it became more moderately consistent. I could always drop that test too, because it is that kind of lower outlier, and that's going to make it much stronger. It's always important to remember, regardless of whether you exclude trials or retest, it's always going to pull the average when you're looking at post-injury results. So even if you throw another 3 trials on there for a retest, it's going to include any trial that's included and just make that average stronger, right? And then memory, I don't know what happened with that trial too, but they scored zeros. They absolutely did not try on that one. So I would just go ahead and exclude that, so that it's not, causing any weird, issues with that average.
And
So
everything that we're going through now, that's why we like to budget that 10 or 15 minutes at the end as your checkout period. Especially if I'm helping out, like I help out at a lot of the colleges around me, and I don't know the athletes personally. So I'll have them come over, they'll check out with me or the head AT, and we'll scan their results with them. And I'll say, hey man, what happened on that memory test? Like, and they might say, oh yeah, like I got super distracted, or like my buddy came in, or whatever the scenario. So then having a little bit of a conversation with the athletes, depending on whether you're high school or college, it might, um, things might need to be adjusted there. But someone brought up that we could probably do a whole webinar on results interpretation. So that might be something we try to sneak in like end of September, or once you guys have you get past preseason, you have some data that we can actually, go through, or maybe some post-injury stuff. But love that idea.
So after we clicked that first test there, that was the original baseline. This athletic trainer went in and did and create some new codes to post-injury test. So I was able to click that chart button there that's just below history. And this can give you a really nice overview of what modules have been retested here. So we saw impulse control was retested and memory. I would have retested balance. They did not. So, if I had access to Martez, I would say, hey, let's get another test going. But even if you have those 3 tests now, right? So the 3 tests, yeah, it's going to show up, and you have to toggle through in that view to see, okay, what trials are showing and what are being pulled. But if we move all the way to that right-hand side, there's a baselines tab. And this is a great overview of all the trials that are included in each of these modules. So this is what's being pulled to compare any post-injury test from. All right, so we're able to see that baseline count. Right now, balance only has 1 trial. So absolutely we would want to test that, retest that. Cognitive for the inspection time, we got 2 trials. Reaction time, 2 trials. Impulse control, because we retested, now there's 4 trials pulling into the average, as well as memory. And you can always look back at all of those results, take out trial 1 from test 1, take out trial 3 from test 2, and kind of piece together that baseline range that you're looking for that athlete.
Awesome. All right. Any kind of last minute questions or concerns or anything like that? I'm gonna leave this slide up just as our uh, if you need to reach out to support at any time. Wait, I lost the question in chat. Um, I really think actually it's a great idea to do a results interpretation, but the key takeaways from today's webinar, we want you guys to walk away feeling like you can run a baseline session, no problem. So hopefully you're all leaving with that. And wait, I gotta get the Q&A up. All right, I think we're good. Well, everyone, we appreciate your time. Oh, here's some quick questions. Is there an age limit? Our norms go down to age 9, and we go up to age like 99, depending on what modules you're taking. I've personally baseline kids that are 6, 7, and 8. I adjust the Sports Plus protocol, like they can't usually handle um, all 5 of the modules, but the most important thing to know is the normative data, like that percentile and that gray bar. If you're testing a, 6, 7, 8 year old, you're not going to get a percentile based on that. So that's the age limit. And how do we baseline? Oh, great question. How do we baseline test an athlete who might have other injuries that can affect results? So, like, if someone has like a ankle sprain or an ACL or something, you can create a custom protocol that does not have balance in it and have them take that protocol, give them something separate, or even if they are just in with the whole group, well, it's hard to skip a test. You're best having those athletes if they can't take a certain module for whatever reason, assuming balance is the most common one, that you create a custom protocol for them. And I did put the demo code
Yeah, I'll put it
for,
back in there.
yeah, somewhere in there. Oh, there it is. Cool. And yes, this webinar is recorded. We'll post it somewhere on Sway University. Everyone that's been on this, we have all your emails and registrations, so we can certainly send the recording out to this group specifically if you guys want to watch it again. But yeah, any last minute questions? We really appreciate everyone's time. This is pretty fun and uh, great to see everyone. We hope you guys have a good preseason. All right. That's all she wrote. Yeah, thank you guys.
Good luck getting started.
Woo. Bye. I love seeing everyone's responses.
I know. That's why I wasn't ending it yet.
I know. Well, we could end the recording.
All right.